Hi, my name is Alec Vasilyev, and what you are about to see is a full interview that I and some friends were lucky enough to do with a Hollywood stuntman and professional skateboarder, William Spencer. It was for a project that we were doing in school. The link to the full project will be in the description below. But this is the entire hour-long interview that we did with William Spencer. Enjoy. All right. Um, Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And
Sure.
I uh I just want to start things off just super basic. How did you really get into the stunt field to begin with? Was it, I know you were a skater, did that sort of feed into it, or was it just a whole its own thing?
Oh man. So you guys, this story is slightly longer than one might think. So I'll try to bring that baby down.
Yeah.
Basically this, you guys, is when I was a kid, I was super into martial arts, climbing trees, and just generally kind of like being outside. My older brother kind of got me into skateboarding, and it was one of those things where I didn't really like it that much, but he was my older brother. And he's like, "Hey man, we're gonna skate." And I was like, well, yeah, I can't say no to you. Yes, right. So he got me into that, and I think that over the years, my interests in like school or learning or anything like that weren't very high because I've just like my interest in it was low. I was like much more interested in like comic books or something like that. That skateboarding was one of the only things that kept my attention, and because it kept my attention, um, I worked really hard at it, even though I was terrible at it. So this is what I did is to fast forward the story is the skateboarding of it all. I just started doing it like when I was a kid, but then really into college and stuff because I was like, wow, I thought after I grew up, I would have different interests or like want something else, but I really didn't. So I started trying really hard at skateboarding, hanging out with my brother, filming with him. And I never thought I was going to get sponsored because I was like, oh, I'm just not good at this. I'm like not very talented. And one of my only goals, and you know how you do this where you go, man, like someday it would be so cool if this happened, but really you're like, don't worry, it's not going to happen. You know, when like a goal is just too big, you're like, come on, you're not going to really do that.
Mhm.
That somehow I started going from like not being good at skating to like kind of developing my own style of what I was good at instead of just going, well, what are other people good at? All right, let me try to practice so I can keep up with them. I just made my own bracket of what I wanted. And from that, I somehow got sponsored on the same company as my brother. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure he put in a good word or whatever to kind of get me in there, which I'm super thankful for. But once I reached the goal of being sponsored with skateboarding, I was like, well, hang on. That was my only goal in my whole life. Right. And so the stunt work of it all and like doing movies and stuff, it's because I literally was like, oh my God, it's over. My one life goal and my standards are obviously they were, I don't know. I didn't realize they were low. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, hey, that would be amazing if anyone ever cared about me skateboarding, if anyone ever cared that I was good or liked it. So I was just very happy with that goal. But then as time went on, I was like, I realized what I was making with skateboarding was so much different than other people that, yeah, I did have some magazine articles and stuff and some people being interested, but I felt like I was kind of bothering skateboarding with adding things to it that it wasn't ready for yet. And those two things together, that and then feeling like, man, I reached my only goal in my life. Now, what am I going to do? That stunt work was one of those things that I was like, hey, I love movies. I love martial arts. I studied as a kid enough to get a black belt in Wadakai karate at a certain point. So I did love that stuff. But once again, I was like, that goal is crazy. I'm going to go be in movies. That seems nuts, you know? Like that seems like a terrible plan that won't work out. And so I guess it was so hard to like conceptualize that that might work that that's why I came out to LA because I was like, I literally am not really a college person, even though I think it's amazing and great. The way my brain works doesn't work like that in the classroom. That maybe there's my version of teaching myself something really hard like that. And it's the only thing that was keeping my interest. So I was like, well, I may as well try to be a stunt person.
Interesting.
Why not? Yeah, I was like, why not? You know, I have nothing else that I'm super into. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really cool. I that kind of goes directly into our next question. How did you end up getting into contact with all of these people who were able to give you these film opportunities?
Ah, well, you guys, it's interesting because one of the most, I would say, barred entries, and not as much now because of with online things opening up. people teaching stunt classes, like reputable people that are in stunt world that go, whatever, I'll teach. Oh, you want to learn John Wick stuff? I'll teach you that for 2 hours. You know, you can pay me money and I'll show you. That's really broadened out with the internet and people realizing the benefit of teaching people instead of like stuntmen at a certain point. And it makes sense for like job security. People would sort of hide the tricks that they had created, the way that they had created special, you know, things in a movie, like that guy looked like he died. And you're like, what? How does that work? That they kind of wanted to protect it, kind of like a magician would protect certain tricks to keep showing them, getting money for it. Because if everybody knows, then is it special? So they were trying to be protective. And so I think in the instance of all that, when I was getting in, people were so protective. It's really hard to even know some, like you guys, I went on a trip helping one of my friends. He was moving this old lady that he had worked with at a school from Sacramento all the way. He lived in Orlando, Florida, where we were going to end up, but we had to drop her off in Tennessee. I had to take this 2-week trip with this truck that was like overheating if you went over 50 miles an hour. So a trip across the US that should have taken like a week spanned into like 2.5, some crazy number. We were always on the side of the road. But I was doing this whole thing because my friend had dangled it in front of me. And this is how, like back then, how hard it was to meet anyone that knew anyone that did stunt work, right? Because it's like it's weird. The secrecy surrounding it and then people being protective of that makes it really hard to like just get in at all. And so I spent that 2-week trip just to meet a guy who was in a live show in Florida at one point that went to high school with my friend's older sister. It was like that far away that you're like, wow, really? Like you're going to meet a guy who knows a guy that, okay. And dude, I did. I went through that whole trip. We finally got down there. We had to drop that old lady off, bless her. She loaned us a car. It turns out we had to repo the car from a guy. We had to repo. She's like, I loaned this guy. He hasn't paid me back. You can use this car. Anyway, whatever. This guy's like crying when he take his car. We then, you guys, she lives, and I know that this part of the story, you're like, William, I don't know what this has to do with it, but just wait. So what ends up happening, I kid you not, we take this guy's car. He's crying. She's like, he didn't make the payments, and you guys really need a car. We're like, okay, man, sure. Because we don't know how we're going to get to Florida to meet this stuntman. And sure enough, we go back to her house. She's like, all right, let me get you license and registration, whatever for it. And then she goes through. She's like, you guys, this is crazy. I actually have another car. We go unrepro this guy's car and give him the keys back. Like, sorry, sir. He's like ready to fight us on the porch. We're like, we're really sorry. Anyways, she then gives us a second little truck. We take off in it. We're like, we're out of here. This lady is crazy. We got to go. We got to meet this stuntman. And then the car, it was so awesome. We get about 100 miles down the road and it had a hole in the gas tank. And so we just ended up on the side of the road for a while. Whatever. The rest of that story is we meet this dude in just like middle of nowhere in Florida in a trailer house. And he's like, so listen, I'm going to tell you how to be a stuntman, like all secretive, you know? And I'm like, this is sick. Let's go. Well, it turns out this guy, and you know what's awesome about the story? Obviously not naming names and whatever people want to do with their lives. But this guy tells me about stunt work. And I don't realize yet too, with getting into movies, there's many versions of it. There's the live shows. There's like TVs, commercials, movies. There's like, you know, traveling shows, there's Cirque du Soleil, like that all are kind of like on the border of all that stuff. And this guy had just been in a show in the Indiana Jones show in Florida at Universal. I think it's like Hollywood. I don't remember. Anyway, I watched it not long ago, you guys. I went down for Christmas a couple years ago. That show was awesome, by the way. Super cool. Anyways, this guy gives me the rundown on stunt work. He starts telling me how he's like, you got to be careful though. You're going to start partying, man. And then soon, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, this is amazing. Because I'm like in some local show in Florida. He's like, oh, man, you'll be off your rocker. You don't even know. I was like taking that. Like, okay, I'm not really worried about that part, but sure. Cut to, it turns out this dude is like part of some sort of a cult. And he's like now running me through the end of the world, but like on these giant flashcards. So it goes from like telling me about stunt work into, he's like, so listen. There's a bunch of bad stuff coming. And I was like, yeah, sick. And I'm all into it because I'm like, hey, man, I got to be a stuntman. And my friend's like in the background like this. He's like, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just listening to this guy spiel. Anyway, you guys, what ends up happening, I'll cut that story off. But what ends up happening is I get some info from that and I go, okay, so what my really net of that whole situation was, I got to get into a live show anywhere. Like live shows are basically the like starting point of any stunt person to do anything really, right? And not everyone can get in that way. And some people, if you know someone or whatever else, you can just walk on and they go, hey man, we need a guy that rides a bike really well. And then you're on set one day and then you're in. Like there are easier ways and harder ways. But I would say the most basic way and the smartest way is it turns out there was a live show tryout and a friend of a friend who I had worked with. I was bar backing at a bar and her friend had been in the Batman Begins show at one point. And so then she hit me up and she was basically, hey, call this lady, whatever. I called her. She said, yeah, come out and try out in April. I try out for that show in April. I somehow get in the first time and then kind of move out to California in my car. Yeah.
That's insane.
That, by the way, you guys, I really,
Yeah.
at some point I want to make a movie about and people always say they're like, my story is so great, but this story was crazy enough that I was like, I really should write it down at some point, actually.
First
Yeah.
green line right here.
So sick.
That's actually kind of perfect because you mentioned, doing live stunts and that, we're curious, how does the handling for that differ between doing stunts for live shows versus TV versus movies? How does that change?
I would say in a live show, what you're doing is like you're trying to kind of have some moves that look good to the audience that are interesting. Batman swings in and kicks a guy, stuff that to the audience you go, yeah, that's Batman, that'll work. But it's plug and play. And by plug and play, I mean it's achievable, it's doable. You can kind of like make it look wonky sometimes, but mostly it's going to work. In a live show, you're doing, I don't know, 5, 6 of those a day. My good friend Colton is in the Waterworld show at Universal right now. He probably, I don't know, he probably does 4 shows a day at least. But like with that stuff, it's repetition. Like you practice all the time with that, where we all know when he climbs up to the water tower thing, he's going to do 3 beats, punch a guy, and then get knocked off the thing, And that's very much more of like a controlled situation that's achievable every time, but also looks really good because their choreography is so good and their dodges are so good that it's believable yet controllable. Where when you get on a movie set, and not always, because I think broadly stunt people like to have their tricks lined up to go, hey, do you want A, B, or C in your movie? And in a lot of times movies don't have much time to film. They just go, dude, we got 2 hours in this location for this much. We're in the middle of a raceway. Do your best trick, and then we gotta go. And they're interested in like your well-practiced stuff. But what ends up happening is when you get deeper into movies, people go, well, yeah, we've seen all that stuff before. And now we really want something like, hey, we want something specific for this character that nobody else is going to do. And that's when you get deeper down the rabbit hole of like, how much time do I have to rehearse? How much time are you going to let me develop this thing? Because sometimes, dude, in the first Spider-Man movie, we were in that warehouse by Sony and I came in late too. I got hired after other guys. They'd already been working at least 2 months on all the swings and stuff that were so specific because they wanted it to be real. That's not something you can go, hey, so show up, put up a rope swing under this bridge, and then just see what you got. Like, it doesn't work like that. In a live show, they'll have the one rope swing, or they'll have the one jump on the jet ski, and then you go, yeah, cool. We all know that you can do that every try. You come in and practice every week to do that. But on a big movie like that, when they want something very specific, not only do they cut it in pieces, like in a live show, it's just one long sequence, right? So no one can mess up, because if you do, then everyone's like, what kind of show is this? So it's achievable enough moves that are still complex, and if they're done well, they look good. But when you get on a movie, they're chopping it into pieces. They're editing it because you go, well, we want him to jump right there. We want him to jump onto the house right there. We want to see his face when he lands. Then we want to see his feet. So you have to do things a bunch of times when you do a movie from different angles. And you're like, well, I've jumped this roof gap 17 times now. They're like, yeah, we got to get it for you. Because a lot of times directorially, they're looking for, hey, I want to make sure that if I make a different choice in the edit, we have all the info we ever want from this one thing to make sure that it'll cut later and you'll understand what it is, and we won't have to cut it out of the movie. So I'd say that the biggest difference is live shows repeatability, and on movies doing stuff a bunch of times that's more complex than what you do in a live show.
Interesting. Yeah. I've always thought about that. Like, how does it work just being forced to do that over and over and over again every day? And that's really interesting to hear how it works.
Yeah. Well, and here's a quick tidbit before you move on, is from skateboarding to me, now I'm not the best skateboarder in the world. I just love it. that oftentimes 50 tries for me is not a big deal. Like 50 try, like a real 50 try, like count them down right now, 50 in stunt world and movie world. Yeah, you can have 50 tries in practice, but when you get on set, it's much more in the like 1 to 10 range or 1 to 5 range. But that's also they're giving you time and money hopefully to practice something so well that you're pulling off something that you have it's not your first day trying it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That that's interesting. Kind of pivoting a little bit here. So in the context of performing in shows and movies, like, we know you've done Cobra Kai, Tenet, and of course Spider-Man. How important do you think it is to, when you're doubling for an actor, to look like them? Do they have certain things to kind of make it not as necessary, or is it still pretty important?
You know what? It's an interesting question because oftentimes, right, when someone calls you for a job and they'll say, "How tall are you?" In a lot of ways, your rebuttal is usually, "How tall do you need me to be?" Right? Because often with that, you guys, it's very interesting because I'll give you a really good example. So on the first Spider-Man movie, my friend Ilram and my friend David Elson had been hired before me. Well, it turns out they had hired both those guys to start working on the stunts before they hired Andrew, right? Which means they're just guessing, like whoever the actor is, they're just guessing how tall he is. Where David Elson is a fair amount shorter than Andrew, right? Where you kind of go, oh no, it's all bad. Like enough that in retrospect, if they had said, all right, Andrew's on, we got to find guys, they probably wouldn't have picked David. But the truth is if you watch the footage, and David has quite a bit where he's doing Spider-Man stuff and whatever else. And compared to the Lizard, the scenes, because another thing you really want sometimes is however tall an actor is, you want the bad guy to be that much taller to give it the like that bravado of like, oh, this dude's gonna kill this guy because it
Yeah.
has a nice drama to it. Where you both, in that sense, sometimes people are overly worried about how tall you are and how much you look like the actor. And in a lot of ways, it won't matter at all. But if they don't try to get close, they look like they're bad at their job. So there's this interesting, it's almost like if you know someone or someone goes, hey, man, I need you to double so and so. And, they tell you the actor, a lot of times it's very usual for that person to look kind of like you, sort of like you. But the truth is, shooting you from the back or the side or quickly, if you really watch a cut in a movie of like, that's the point of it, is if it's cut quick enough, you're like, I don't know who it was. And that's why when people get too picky about your face and don't get me wrong, you get someone that's just, you're like, that dude is 270 pounds and I'm 130. No, maybe not, right? Even on a good day. But there's a lot of that stuff that when people are worried about their jobs and they want to micromanage stuff, they'll worry way too much about making you look exactly like them or being the exact height. And really, that there's an interplay of 3 inches, people wearing lifts, people wearing boots, people not wear that you can get away with a lot. And that's it. Dude, I had this pilot for Red Bull for my own show, maybe like 5 years ago, or whatever. And I remember I had my girlfriend at the time, Michelle Stylen, she was roller skating, and we're doing this scene where basically this new concept in the future that however much money, let's say you have a bad month and you go, hey, my rent is $1,500. I have $500. They just shrink your apartment to the size that $500 is worth, right? And so it's this scene where she's roller skating through and we're trying to like move everything and have stuff not collapse on some roller skates. Well, at some point she's like, hey man, I'm sorry, I gotta quit filming and go home. And my friend who's like Asian, maybe like 5'2", in no way the same color as her, whatever else, put on her stuff and then roller skated through this one scene because we really needed it. And if you could find that scene in there, you're awesome. But mostly, that's such a huge contrast between those two people, woman, guy, super dark skin, that it can matter and then it can entirely not matter at all. And if you have friends, it definitely matters less. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of just about like walking that rope between, who's qualified versus who actually looks like them, kind of find a happy middle.
Yeah. Yeah. And as time goes on, people are which it's all fine. I'm surprised it wasn't like that, but people are very serious now too about whatever race the person is that you're doubling. They really want you to be the same race as them
Mhm.
too. Like they've cracked down on that in a way that they feel like they're making things more equal for everyone. And for me, anything that makes the world more fair, I'm into. So if that's what that's doing, I'm down.
Mhm.
So
Nice.
yeah.
Um, Now, kind of moving to another thing, I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot, but we just want to have it for our project as well. Have you ever been
Sure.
like seriously injured on a set during rehearsal, like throughout your career or in recent years?
So I've been really lucky in recent years, and obviously, I think there's stories online on the first Spider-Man where I basically it's so funny how that stuff happens. But I was rehearsing for a gag on there, just a simple wire gag where the wire I have a chest harness on, and the wire's just going to the kind of like top of my neck back, and I'm just supposed to shoot through this small space and then drop. And in fact, it's funny because it's not actually in the movie, but in the original Spider-Man, what's funny is that it's supposed to be a comedy bit where he's becoming Spider-Man, but he's not good yet. And so he shoots through, tries to land on the ground all cool, and he's still in his like vigilante costume, but instead he hooks his hoodie and then he just swinging against the fence, and he's like trying to look cool, and then a lady walks by with her dog, and he's like, oh, it's this awkward moment, and it was crazy because that gag is kind of on the easier side, but the way it was set up at the time, because it was probably in a hurry or whatever happened with it, I wasn't smart enough and I wasn't experienced enough to like make adjustments in the rig, right? And that was on me because I should have, like, whatever it is, if I would have practiced more or been more familiar with rigging, maybe I could have made an adjustment. And you have to be very careful on movie sets because when people set up gags that have been working for years that do the rigging and they go, well, I've set it like this, I've done this, I've done that, that sometimes questioning that, you feel disrespectful, even though, of course, at the end of the day, you're the one who, if it doesn't work right, you're the one who gets hurt. So that's a delicate balance as well. But what ended up happening is basically I accidentally, when I shot through this opening and I was going to start coming down in front of this fence and acting like my hoodie was caught on the fence, the wire wrapped around my neck. And when it did, it just so happened the shiv, which is the pulley that the tech line goes through to my back, that's like holding me up off the ground, right? Is that it just so happened there was just a little bit of slack, and I kept putting on either shoulder because I'm so close to the shiv, perched on this little thing, getting ready to kind of shoot through an underbar, that I didn't think like, oh, this extra slack, we got to do something with it. And whether that's me, whatever else happened, which I love to take responsibility for that stuff because I always want to be better. And I just noticed blaming people usually does nothing, because then, right? What are you going to do? Like, hey, man, you suck. And like, if that person doesn't want to change, guess what? You've done nothing. Where sometimes like taking on responsibility for that and going, dude, if I had more experience, I could have like respectfully known to say, hey, do you mind moving that shiv back? Do you mind like putting it up a tiny bit? Right. And still knowing like, hey, man, I know you're awesome, but if it's okay, I'd feel more comfortable. What ended up happening is like, as I came down, all the weight that should be going to the shackle and then into my harness, all that weight came down. And so it just kind of filleted open my chin. And thankfully, I got really lucky about is like, yeah, it was sucky because it was one of those like kind of like, like hangman situation, but it happened quick enough that all my weight came down. And then instead of staying here, catching behind this, it just ended up ripping open, it was like 15 stitches or something. But it's really cool. No jugular, didn't hit my jugular at all. That's super lucky,
Wow,
So
that is rough.
yeah, you guys, super. And at the time, I was obviously upset at myself, and just like that was the first gag I was doing on the first Spider-Man movie, where they're like, "All right, William, it's your time to jump in there." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sick! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited!" And that immediately happened. And I know that Andy Armstrong, the coordinator at the time, who's one of my heroes, he felt so bad because he's like, "Yes, we're getting you in there. We're so excited!" And then immediately record scratch to like, "Your stitches look nice. I'm sorry," But what's cool is Andy was so awesome. Yeah, he felt bad, and yeah, he was like kind of kicking himself because no one wants to have anyone ever hurt, of course. Which, by the way, that's what stunt work is like they're paying you in case you do. Like that's the job. But even with that many years deep, when you have a really good record of hurting no one and it happens, that still hurts, And so what was cool is they waited maybe 2 weeks or so. I got all the stitches out, and then they let me go back and do the gag. So that was cool. I thought that was awesome to like close the loop. You're bummed, you failed at it, hurt yourself, and then they're like, yeah, you're not doing it anymore. You're like, cool. So that felt good. Yeah.
Mm. You know, that was, you said that was day one. That was your first.
So basically, I had been on rehearsing with those guys, for a month or so, whatever. But when they actually started shooting, and they go, because Ilram and David were already on there, they had other gags that they had practiced that are divided up between them. Because I wasn't on that movie at first because I missed the audition. That once they brought me on, they're like, you know what? we'll give him that gag. And it was the very, like, it was in rehearsal. I didn't even have the outfit on yet that I was going to do it in. They're like, yeah, let's rehearse it one more time. And then you'll go change and then we'll shoot it, you know? And I was like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. You know? So.
Wow.
Wait, you said 2 weeks from then, 2 weeks from that happening, and then they brought you back and you kept working in the film, like 2 weeks from the stitches?
No. So so to clarify, I got the stitches and was like, of course, I'm like on Spider-Man. So I'm like, it's a dream, right? I'm like, this is amazing that I went to the hospital, let's say at like, it wasn't even dark yet. So let's say like 5, 6 p.m., get out of the hospital, come rush back to set. Like, hey man, I'm ready. You want to do this? And they're like, you have stitches in what? No, you know what I mean? And then, so what ended up happening is that I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I wasn't gonna. And then once, like, of course, I was just working on the movie. I was there, I was helping, doing whatever. And then 2 weeks, however long it took to get the stitches out, they then were like, okay, now you can go back and do that gag, you know? But no, I came back the same night and kept working, of course. And
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Well, moving into more positive stunt experiences, what do you think is the stunt that you think is the best or most proud of, or what is the William Spencer highlights of your career?
You know, you guys, it makes me laugh because it reminds me of like old school. You guys remember this, but as a kid, they would be like, oh man, Billy Farnsworth, did you hear he jumped off the roof over you'd hear about some crazy thing somebody did. Like, no, man, he jumped off the bleachers. You're like, the bleachers there's no way, man. And you don't have evidence of it. But you're like, dude, and it's like this big story surrounding, like, I remember before phones, that was like such an epic thing to do. And then my favorite is like the same with the kid. They'd be like, my dad owns a Ferrari. You're like, no, he doesn't, man. Oh yeah, we'll have him drop you off at school. You know, like that whole dichotomy. But funny enough, one of my like things that I'm most proud of was on the second Spider-Man movie. It like there is footage of it, but if you search on the internet and go, all right, Spider-Man in NYC around 2013, 14, whatever, because we were filming, we had all these passerbys that were filming us, right? But it was far enough back that they're like on Blackberries, right? Well, this scene is cut out of the second intro Spider, and this is what's really cool is Andy Armstrong, super stunt legend, second unit stunt coordinator, second unit director, like just kills it, right? And one of my mentors, and was always, and now when you look at movies, so many people who are great at stunts, they're great at stunt choreography, they're great at stunt design, they've done tons of second unit directing all through their career, but no one really listens to them as far as going, hey, what stunts do you want in there? Usually it's just a made to order where they go, hey, stunt guy, what do you think? He's like, well, we could jump off. And they're like, it's a lot of money. That seems scary. Never mind. Like, they get his opinion, but then don't use it. And Andy's one of those guys that is able to sort of keep his opinion in there. And he's been doing it long enough that people listen. They go, yeah, this guy's awesome. He's proven. So this is what he wanted. Do you know that gag in this? I don't know if you remember, it's been in the second Spider-Man movie. As it's starting, police chase, he grabs onto the truck and then goes out of frame like this, like Buster Keaton, right?
I do. So, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
So that shot, which is cool because it got to be practical. Everything else, he's CG swinging in. You're like, yeah, okay, fine, right? Because there's less and less spots for like real action as time goes on. You know what else is, and then I really will answer the question fully. But you know what I get fascinated about, you guys, is like if you go on Instagram right now, there's some dude on a trail riding bike, first person, launching like 30 stairs into like the down part of stairs, then launching another 30 stairs. Like people can do stuff that's totally nuts now that back in the day, if you're like, oh, that's not even possible. People have gotten so much better at physically like parkour, jumping between roofs, you've seen people on Instagram just jumping to a pole super far, then sliding down it in London, all this amazing stuff. And yet the world is like, you know what we need? More CG to cartoon it up. So everyone's getting gnarlier and gnarlier, and we're not going to use that. We're just going to do more CG about it. And I think that's what kind of started bumming me out in that second Spider-Man movie is that Andy Armstrong had said, hey, we'll pay homage to Buster Keaton. Then, and I don't know if you remember, but that was like a police truck, right? That was in pursuit of like, I think all the police cars are chasing down the bad guy. Anyways, on the back of that truck, Andy had done this. He had taken, and that truck is probably like oh, I don't know, it's probably like 7 or 8 feet tall, right? The one that I hang on to. He mounted on the back of it a platform. The back of the truck is here, and this is probably like 4 feet to get up all the way on top of it. Almost my head height, but not quite, right? Well, he put me on an air ram, and an air ram is basically this. Let's call it 3 feet square platform, and it's got and hopefully I'm doing it right in the right dimension for you guys to be able to see it like that direction, but it's got this pedal on it. And what happens is when you run up in rhythm, and it has grip tape on it like a skateboard. It's not as long as a skateboard or anything, but when you touch it, right? Imagine a mini tramp or a trampoline, but it's had a baby with a landmine. And when you touch it, it has air pressure in it, and it'll just blast you into the air, right? As soon as your foot touches it, hits this pin that fires it, and they can turn it up soon. Like you could literally, like if they were like, hey man, we want you to run up and you're a superhero, and we want you to jump onto the roof of that house, entirely doable, right? You're like, yep, here we go. You fire that thing. Well, what he did is he was like, so listen, we have this one practical Buster Keaton thing, and then what I really want you to do is I'm going to put you on a platform on the back of this thing. I'm going to put you on an air ram. And normally people will run up to an air ram. In every war movie, someone's like firing. And then all of a sudden you get that moment where they're like, oh no, like a bomb's coming in, and then boom, they fly out a shot. It's usually they run up to an air ram, and that's what does it. And a lot of times they'll put dust on the air ram so that when it fires the piston and goes up, that like dust sprays with it, right? It looks super cool. So what he did was he's like, William, we're going to make this practical. We can't put you on a wire to jump up there. We can't have you jump off a mini tramp because then we'll see you before. He wanted to see nothing and then see Spider-Man. Like if you're looking out the back of the truck, see nothing and then see Spider-Man just fly up like this and then land on the top all triumphant, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's what I want. Well, he put the air ram all the way on the back of this, but the platform that he made, there's nothing behind it. So now I'm at least chest high off the ground. I have another like almost head height to get up on top of, but he's like, William, I want you to Spider-Man jump it, which means I want you to go the 4 feet or whatever it is that I want you to jump up. I want you to go twice that. You're Spider-Man. I want you to jump up there so they don't have to use CG. But the platform that he made, the air ram's at the very back, which means now 30 miles an hour, right? The truck's going 30. They have me on a platform right here on an air ram, right? The air ram, which you're normally, it's a kind of a big no-no to ever touch it with your knee bit because it can just fling you or it can fling your leg straight up or it can throw you off, right? Well, he wants me to squat on it, right? He wants me to squat riding 30 miles an hour, try to hang on to whatever, but also I have to fire my button. I have to fire myself on it. And normally you run up to it, right? And it fires itself. You can't do it like that. I'm standing on it the whole time. So now I'm in a squat position, going 30 miles an hour, just down it's not at a studio. It's just in the streets of New York. And we're just going up and down. And I'm just trying to wait for the street to be flat, right? All the bumps, all the things when you're driving in a car in New York, you're like, yeah, whatever. I never thought about it. Dude, when you're squatting on the back, by the way, if I fall, I'm not tied in. I can't be tied in because if I get tied in and I jump up there and I fall off, it'll just drag me along the ground. It's a terrible. So I'm like, hang on to a rope. I've got the firing button. And now the scariest thing about it is I'm on the back of this. So if I fall off, I just fall off going 30 miles an hour, to my back or whatever. So now I'm sitting there waiting for it not to be bumpy, right? Well, here's the other problem is if you fire that before your legs are straight, it'll just backflip you onto the concrete, right? Your legs will just shoot out from underneath you. So now I'm having to do in perfect rhythm, wait, take a bounce with myself, know that my legs are straight enough, and then finally fire the button, right? And you're just waiting. Anyway, so super scary. We just start, and first we start at 15 miles an hour, but Andy's like, hey, it doesn't look fast enough. We finally fire this thing up all the way, launching down the street, right? We got a street cleared in New York City, and now I'm just trying to fire this thing and land on top, going that fast while, shaking down the road. The truck is all bumpy, and they're like, yeah, and then of course we want you to triumphantly land like Spider-Man, And what's sucky is as scary as that setup was, and even now I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do it now either. That is one of the only things that didn't make it in the movie. And also, I never got the footage of it. I never got DIT. And even if you look on the internet now, because I've scoured for my, and I'll send it to you guys, but I have a Spider-Man reel that's like 13 minutes of like all the stuff I did in the movies and the commercials and whatever. And that's the only thing that if you watch it, there's some cool still photos. There's the practice footage of it. And then you just see really crappy, like filmed on a potato clip of me going by doing I don't know what in New York City on someone's BlackBerry. So, yeah, but yeah, that I'm really proud of. And I got to tell you guys this, I'm different than my counterpart. Most of the stunt people that like are at the level of doubling superheroes and been in a long time, a lot of times that so much of that stuff is for hire that you get brought on some big movie. People obviously tell you what to do. They want to take your opinion, but really they're just worried about the director wants. You don't really get to do truly stuff that you're like, wow, I'm so proud of that. That's exactly what I want to do. And coming from the world of skateboarding, where literally that's the point of a video part, is to say what you want to say. That's it. There's not, you don't have people who direct video parts for skateboarders. Mm-hmm. I went to the set of Stairs. This is what I wanted to do. And now it's on film. That cutting out that middleman, I'm one of the few people still that I'll make as many stunts and as many Instagram clips or whatever as I will movies. Because even at that level, however high up, you're stunt doubling the best superhero and the whatever, still with all the dichotomy between, oh, the studio head, the producer, so-and-so wants this. We think that's too much. Hey, we've got a great CG guy, that you'll end up not doing what you really want to do creatively. You just won't. You're just for hire and you're there. Where a lot of the stuff I'm most proud of, to like the full cap off to your question is this, the stuff I'm most proud of, I'm usually out making myself indie filmmaking style, like you would make a skateboard video, because that's the only way I can have that footage. Because if I wait for everyone to give me the opportunities, right? I've started. Have you guys ever heard of Two Bellman?
I don't think so. No.
That's what I'm talking about. See, point made. So if you get on the internet tonight, just go on to YouTube and look up Two Bellman. And I finally get to do the Jackie Chan, right? I'm doing all the acting and all the action together, right? Of course, it's action comedy. I don't even like being serious, really. But even with that, what ends up happening is that I was like, no one was listening to me, listening to my ideas. And so as soon as I started acting, right, then all your ideas are good. You're just super smart. Wow. So that's why I've like started segueing into that, is because you either are a stuntman on set and like do some stuff on the weekend if you feel like it, or you just kind of go, hey, for the next 5 years, no one's going to see any cool footage of me. I'm going to get a bunch of paychecks on movies. But me to really be proud of what I'm doing on set is a more rare thing than people want to talk about. And don't get me wrong, you should still go for that. Like if you really want to do stunt work, if people want to be in movies, you should do it. But just know that there's a caveat that your best ideas and whatever else, unless you're the actor or the producer or the person making because I used to think, oh, I see Tom Cruise, you're just so self-involved. You like want to star in your movie and executive produce. Well, guess what? When you're the executive producer of a movie, instead of having some money guy tell you, hey, man, it's actually too dangerous to hang on to the outside of an airplane and take off, right? It's too dangerous. Tom Cruise, all he does is goes, hey, I want to hang on to an airplane. And everyone goes, oh, Tom, that's not safe. He's like, whatever, I'll test it out. It costs a lot of money. He's like, I'll pay for it. And then guess what? In his movie, he's hanging on to the outside of an airplane, doing whatever he wants. So for me, I used to think it was self-involved. And now putting myself in movies, putting myself in the lead as a lead character, it just means that all the cool ideas and all the stunts and all the choreography that I ever wanted to do will actually get seen, you know? So that's my answer to that problem. My brothers and sisters in stunt world, a lot of them are happy with like, hey, well, I do some cool stuff. If I don't have a lot to say, I'm just for hire. I just want to, if they need a guy to kick, I'll kick. That's awesome too. But for me, I'm just represent the other side where I'm about creativity and about actually making movies for myself because I love them, not just as a job. So I'm kind of doing the street skateboarding version of keeping stunt work there, not because I couldn't get hired doing the other thing, but when you get hired, you spend, 6 months being a soldier or whatever. And then when you show the footage to your friends, you're like, yeah, I was in this movie. Watch, I'm right. See that guy right there? I was on the like the berm, watch the berm. That's my gun. So you're like, wow, I spent 6 months of my life and you saw me lift a gun over a berm. So that's why it's important, you guys, like however deep you want to get. And I also have a bunch of counter questions for you guys after this, but if you want to be getting into that, just know that like what you're getting into, as long as you have passion for it, you can do that and do what you want at the same time, but you can't be lazy and do that.
So we heard you talk a little bit about what you think of Tom Cruise and, wanting to do his own stunts. In general, what is your experience with actors who insist on doing their own stunts? Do you admire it for the most part, or do you find it just kind of stay in your lane? Do you ever see them bite off more than they can chew? What's your experience with that?
Oh man, I mean, here's what's interesting is I think, like most things, right? It's about timing and it's about the good taste of which things are necessary to do to have the audience go, oh man, I really believe it. Oh man, that guy fell down all those stairs, got up, I saw his face. Like that guy is like a world hurt on him and I can feel it. I think as long as that it's tastefully done in a way that you go, wow, the filmmaker really thought about this. I just don't like the lazy filmmaking aspect where they kind of go, whatever, just have a guy run down the stairs now, have Terry jump in there. Like I like the feeling of it's tailored perfectly. For me, right? People like Jackie Chan, people like Tom Cruise. The truth is about all that stuff is like on film, they know the value of people going, wow, I believe it. You know what I mean? You kicked 3 guys, you got knocked through a wall, you stood up and you did whatever, right? That's good for the value of it, of keeping the audience invested. I think that's really smart. But we all know, like within the industry, we all know guys that double Jackie and we know guys that double Tom Cruise. But when we say double, what ends up happening, right, is like if you go, hey, I want an A, B, and C, right? Like I'm a big actor guy, I want an A, B, and C. And someone goes, oh man, that's pretty gnarly. Are you sure? Well, for starters, it would be silly of you to go, you know what, Tom, why don't you head out there with your Ferrari, put it on a bridge, try to spin it, and we'll see if you fall off, right? That would be a terrible plan. So what they end up doing, people that double Tom, people that double Jackie, oftentimes try out the gags before them, right? Meaning they're not, even Jackie's like, well, dude, I can't break my leg. I have a whole movie to do. So can someone just try it and see if it's a terrible plan? With that, there's always jobs for stunt people and stuntmen and stunt women and stunt performers to like be able to get in there and help in that way. But that's actually also tastefully done, which is, hey, you needed help with this exact thing. I helped you with it. I don't need to do more and I don't need to do less than that. And as long as people will go, hey, in this fight, and it takes self-awareness, right? Because a lot of people, you know, Andrew did this. There's a scene in The Amazing Spider-Man where he's has fought the lizard in the sewer, whatever, and now he's kind of getting washed downstream, and he falls down this kind of big drop, goes and then slowly crawls out of the water, whatever else, is breathing super hard. However much of that is in there, you can watch the BTS and stuff. And when I did that scene, I did the stunt, and then I crawled out of the water. And of course, for me, acting in stunts, like people like to separate it because mentally, people staying in their lane or wanting to oftentimes are people who haven't fully realized what a movie is, because just because you're a piece of a movie and you go, well, I just go fast and I let them cry. The truth is, if you're not overlapping in that, in the acting and the action, you're not very good, or you're not very self-aware to realize you're in the bigger picture. You're in movies. I don't really like that acting stuff. You're like, you shouldn't have picked movies. The dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You're supporting something that's about crying and you're pretending like you're not part of it. That's nuts. So what was really cool that Andrew did is when I did that scene, fell down the thing, did the stunt, crawled out of the water, was acting, right? Like super, and then pull my mask off. Andrew wasn't like, well, I want to do that. I want to pull my mask. He was like, hey, the acting's really good there. Make William do it, right? There's a bunch of stuff. There's another scene where he's like, the lizard is like lifting up in the end of the movie and he's like strangling him. And he's like, trying to fight the lizard, and he's like having this big moment with her, whatever else. And he's like, he walks in, he's like, yeah, the way William do is sick. I like that acting. I like the legs kick. I like what he's doing. Keep it. So when you have someone who is like good at what they're doing, they're practicing not having their insecurities overshadow what could be, then of course you get the perfect trade-off of someone goes like, hey, you know, you do the thing, run down the stairs, fall, whatever else, and you stand up. And a lot of times the cowboy switch is great for that, where you have the one guy get kicked through the wall, right? Shoots a bunch of shots, and then someone throws him over a countertop, and then you have the actor stand up all beat up out of it, and you've swapped on film perfectly. When you get, you know, you get that good rhythm, you can totally make that happen. But it's also about, hey, are you good at acting enough to act like this guy while doing stunts? Because that, a lot of that people don't realize, like, if you think you only do stunts and you don't act, you don't know what's happening yet. Your self-awareness is not high enough to realize if you're not part of the acting, people don't want to see you in the shot because they're thinking, that's Tom Cruise. That's a weird guy running. That's Tom Cruise. They don't want that. You know, they want it to be seamless. And if you're not good at acting, you can't be a good stunt person. That's the way it really goes. Like the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. Yeah, sure. Some people should kind of, you know, there's a famous story, you know, James Armstrong told me that basically, and of course, no name because it's just funny, whatever. But at some point, and this was like current, they were in the middle of this big fight, and it was for a TV show. And James is like, yeah, and then you do this jujitsu move, and you maybe tie this guy up, and this guy's like, yeah, cool. But then I want to go ahead and chop this guy. And James is like, do you want to chop him with a chop hand? A 1975 karate hand from 007? But what's crazy is like, is that a moment where James, of course, tastefully, because he has very good taste, was like, hey, man, listen, why don't we try it this way, see how it feels? If all of a sudden, the director or whoever else goes, hey, man, now we need a chop hand, we'll get in there, right? So my point is sure, staying in your lane is good, but you have to be very careful that you're staying in your lane for the right reason. You have good reasons to do it, and other people know. And you're also willing to push yourself and people, no, actually, I want you to finish the acting. I want you to finish doing it. Because then if they push a little bit, they get good at stunts, and you get good at the acting side, everyone just, right? They just flow together better. So in the perfect world, and I'm speaking for the future because that's what I like to do of what can be, that stuff will be much more cohesive, and people, the duality of the credit, right? Even, percentage-wise, people are like, yeah, so-and-so Spider-Man or this movie. I heard so-and-so did 70% of the stunts, whatever else. I got to tell you, this is one thing I think is true, is like whatever happens on set, an actor goes, ooh, man, my shoulder's hurting today. I'm not going to, right? You go, okay, cool, I got you. But when the movie comes out and that person goes, hey, I just want to thank so-and-so, the credit given, the reason why it's so little to stunts and whatever else, doesn't matter to me why it's happened so far. But in my mind, the difference between what is and what should be is that people, when they do a movie that's an action movie and they go, hey, how much of the action did you do? They don't go, I did 70%, right? Because then they're making a claim about it. When there's some guy behind you like, do you know how many tables I got thrown through? 70, right? That doesn't feel good, when the truth is, tastefully, you should go, all I know is to make Batman or to make this character, to make Spider-Man, he's not real, which means it takes more than one human. Mm-hmm. You know what fusion is? You guys ever watch Dragon Ball Z? Dragon Ball?
I know of it, yeah.
Yeah, just know that.
Fusion dance,
Yeah, it's that to make a character that doesn't exist in real life. It's more than one person, period. Like that's that partnership, and whether people want to talk about it or whatever else, that's much more realistic than people know. And hopefully in the future, people will start to see it like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
It's the end of our questions, right?
That concludes the questions we have. Again,
cool.
Say thank you so much for
sure.
doing this. If you have anything else to say, feel free.
Yeah. Tell me about you guys. Where are you at? What is this class? What is it for? Tell me all the things.
So we are film students at Emerson College in Boston.
Very cool.
My name is Alec. This is Sawyer. This is Nicky. They've been
very cool. Hi guys. Yeah.
The two other members of our group, June and Jake, unfortunately could not make it to this meeting, but they're going to be super jealous once we tell them how good it was. Yeah, we're our project is basically one of our classes is sort of an introduction to our major. It gets us into all of the basics of filmmaking, all the different jobs, and this is kind of our final project for the semester to basically make a report on a specific job in the filmmaking industry. And we figured, everyone wants to talk about directing, writing, acting, and obviously, we all have such great appreciation for it, but one job that at least we felt often doesn't always come to mind, but is extremely important is stunt work. And we wanted to kind of shine a light on that, on the quite literally the unseen heroes of everyone's favorite movies.
Cool, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, there's some rad counterculture in that, and I think a lot of times, especially with film school and things like that, people often get caught up on making sure things look pretty, and they go, oh, this shot is so beautiful. And then when you watch the short film, you're like, that's the most beautiful, plotless thing I've ever seen, And so I think it's important for you guys as you go along. You'll probably start to realize this with film school, but it's one of those things where, yeah, you guys doing is much more important than you guys theorizing, So yeah. I think that's rad though, you guys. I think that's cool that you Hey, what year are you guys? You guys all different years, or you're all the same year?
All freshmen. Yeah, we're all freshmen.
Very cool. Hey, and how is it so for like as far as your expectations? Like, all right, that's it. I'm going to film school. How is it compared to how you thought it was going to be?
I mean, do either of you guys want to take this one?
It's a really good question.
I thought I was going to be an engineer, so it's quite different.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, dude, you know what's cool about that is having that outside interest sometimes. You'd be shocked how, and I'll tell you this, guys, is when I was first started skating, inventing doing flips onto a skateboard, I thought was a stupid idea, right? I really thought it was a stupid plan. But as the years have gone by, I start to realize, and it's the same, like, dude, Freddie Mercury, right? Queen, that dude should have been an opera singer and called it a day, right? But the counterculture of who he was made, like, he literally shattered rock and roll, right? And then put it back together in the way he saw best. That I think for you guys, like, into film school, instead of like the falling in line that happens, like, all right, we'll do it like do it. What would David Lynch do? What would, like, come on, like, you guys should think about, and it's really hard because it feels self-involved, but as you're in school, you guys should think about, what do I do that everybody else here doesn't do? And how is that perspective going to make me not look different, not stand out, but what about it is like, I can say myself instead of going, whatever, this turned out just like so-and-so short film because we're all have the same information. Because a lot of times you get insecure about what's weird about you. And a lot of times the most relatable thing is the best thing. And oftentimes the most relatable thing is the thing that you're most insecure about. Really, the thing that you're like, I hope no one ever finds out. Oftentimes when you make something that personal, like if you guys make whatever your project is and you're like, all right, I'm gonna make this film. If you make it almost embarrassing when you watch it with people, it's probably gonna be great, even though it's really hard to get yourself to do that, you know? Because you're like, no, you guys, I actually don't want to talk about it. And that normally is the thing that other humans are like, I also don't want to talk about it. That's crazy. Someone was brave enough to put that on film. And that's usually, instead of people going, these guys are so cool. Because by the way, the world, you know what it needs? More cool. I'm just kidding. Please don't do that, right? So looking cool, being cool, making sure that you feel cool on film is by far the most boring thing that one can do on film. Yeah. Truly. Yeah. You know, that's why if you watch a Jackie Chan movie, and you go, man, it's so crazy how good he is at stuff, but how he makes me feel like he might not make it. And also, he's funny when he doesn't need to be, right? And when you're so good at what you're doing that you can also be funny while doing it, you have mastered it, really. And so try to like, as you guys go forward, try to think about the relatability. Like, hey, what is the funniest thing that people will go, oh my God, that's just like me? That's way funnier than all the stuff you're like, man, the leather jacket is sick. I look sick right now. Like, just don't bother, you know? And I know, of course, from your teachers and everybody, there's tons of lessons around like how to get that on film. But like for yourself, really, I would dare you to lean into this stuff. You're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever felt. And then put that on film, you know? Yeah. You'll get there. I'm stoked for you guys. I think it's a big deal to even do film school. You know, it's a big endeavor. So,
yeah. Sorry, my roommate's here. He would also like to ask you one question.
Nice to meet you.
How are you, dude?
I'm good. I was actually just about to go out and shoot some stuff. So, yeah.
That's rad.
You skate. What's your favorite trick?
Have you ever seen any of my skateboarding?
No, I gotta be honest, I haven't.
Good. No, this is perfect. This answer will be way more entertaining now. I just filmed something the other day for Team Ignition, which is like a big podcast. I was teaching Do you know skateboarding at all?
Yes, I skate.
So do you know Leticia Buffani?
Yeah.
So I taught her to basically be an action star the other day. I'll send you guys the episode too. Is it your teacher that I was texting to set this up? I think so.
No, it was me.
Oh, it was? Okay, cool. I was like, I couldn't tell who. That I will send you a couple of links, but what's rad is like Team Ignition, they wanted to promote like the podcast and whatever, me teaching her. And the other day I did this trick years ago when I directed this Fiat commercial, but I basically hang onto the side of a car and then put a little bit of like just lay a piece of plywood against, and I actually wall ride the wall while hanging onto the car, but like boost over people, you know, and then hang out on stuff like that. I really like. Basically, what I like to do is I like to do whatever people haven't done yet. I have a big if you end up, and I'll send you my Instagram stuff, whatever. But if you watch, I'm one of those people that people sort of go, "Wow, I can't believe you added that to skateboarding." And people love it. Sometimes people hate it. Sometimes what people never do is not learn from it and evolve and go, "Oh man, as much as this dude, I don't like exactly how he did it." Because I was the first person. If you go, do you know what the barracks is?
I think so. It sounds
So if you look it up, it's basically the biggest hub in skateboarding, right? Of all the cool guys going in there. And it's like a specific skate park that's private and you have to get invited. But I have one of the most, actually the most popular video in there that was ever made. And it took him about 10 years to admit it because it made him uncomfortable, right? But that's the first time that I used the slack line to bounce. I hit something and then bounced onto a ledge into a front board. And if you watch now, skateboarding people always bounce off of stuff. They always bounce off of wires. They find chains or whatever now. But before that existed, no one bounced off anything. So it's one of those things. That's sort of like just to give you a overview of what I usually do. But yeah, my favorite trick is something that I haven't done yet usually.
no, that's so real. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but hey, how long have you skated for?
Not too long, maybe like a year and a half.
Oh, sick. Are you a pretty fat, like, can you kickflip and stuff already?
Oh, I can do an ollie. Like
That's awesome. Because by the way, it took me a long time to learn how to, like, my actual trajectory of getting good at skateboarding. Like, this is crazy, you guys, because I feel real old, but I'm just now, my comfortability with skate, I'm just now as good as I've ever been. And I've been skateboarding like in the 20 years mark, you know? So I would just say don't give up in case you're having a terrible day.
Yeah, no.
Skateboarding's super hard. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
So fun. Yeah, thank God it distracts you from how hard it is by being fun. Yeah.
For sure.
Totally. You got any other questions?
I mean, we kind of hit all of our big ones.
Cool.
Once again, just
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
I've been kind of holding back this whole time because I mean, any of these guys will tell you I'm like the biggest, superhero fans, but don't.
Dude, that's right. You know what's funny, you guys? I gotta tell you, hey, just quickly here, and not to make
I just wanted to grab this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not to make this super sad or anything like that, but I'll tell you this, guys, that when I was doing those Spider-Man movies and they kind of hadn't come out yet and my family knew, my dad, we would be at restaurants, right? We're just sitting at a restaurant and my dad, a waitress would walk by, not our waitress, by the way, just a waitress. And he'd be like, "Hey, ma'am, do you like Spider-Man? This guy right here, this guy's Spider-Man," like super proud, right? And of course I was like, Dad, Dad, and my dad is awesome, right? Where I'm like, that dude can do pretty much whatever he wants. He's such a rad dad. But I remember being so deeply embarrassed by that, right? Dude, please, like, just not random people, whatever. So what ends up happening, it goes through time. The second movie comes out. I get to invite my parents to New York to film, like, when I'm filming on the second one. You guys, I got to tell you this, like, my ability to, like, want to be celebrated, meaning, of course you go, "Oh, that's over there," like, like, don't tell anyone I'm Spider-Man, whatever else. Well, you guys, I got to tell you that a couple years after that, my dad ended up passing away from cancer. And in those moments of like being shy about that stuff or being like bummed that someone is like calling you out or telling people, you wouldn't believe what I would give to have him awkwardly introduce me one more time.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point to say that is this is like, dude, when you meet your heroes or you meet whoever, or you like go, "Hey, to be honest with you, like, this is awesome," because playing it cool, by the way, with people that you want to meet or can meet, there's no point to it. Because guess what? The only thing you'll do for the rest of time is go, "You know what I should have said?" Nobody wants that from their life. So just do yourself a favor. Next time, whoever you meet, whoever you're into, say what you really mean. Because I got to tell you, dude, time is so short that it's useless to do anything else. And for you, like, dude, if you're a huge Spider-Man fan, you should freaking make all the fan films in the world about it and just be happy with it. Seriously. Because for me, dude, for many years, and I'll tell you this, I didn't belong, right? You're the stuntman, but you're not the star. you go and do appearances and like, but don't take your mask off, right? It's like the secret that you're not someone else. As soon as No Way Home came out and went and did that movie, me and Andrew, as soon as it came out, the multiverse, all of my fans on Instagram were like, dude, what's up? You don't own a suit? What's up? Where's your footage? And what does your version of Spider-Man do? And you know how empowering that is? Because before that, dude, I was like, hey, I'll do the movies. I'm not going to do cosplay. I don't want to cheapen whatever. You see me in the movies. Let's just leave it there. And the fans were like, no, dude, do you skateboard? Also, do you not skateboard with a Spider-Man suit on? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you think I don't want to see you do that? And dude, that blew my mind in the way that I was like, instead of going, well, what am I uncomfortable with? Like, what am I insecure about? That I'm not the actor guy, I'm not whatever. When the truth is, dude, the fans don't give a crap anymore. With the multiverse, I am Spider-Man in my universe.
Yeah.
And people want that. They're literally like, what's up with you? What's going on in your version of reality, your universe? And so I've leaned into that, dude. And even though at first I was like, wow, this is deeply insecure. I'm wearing spandex all the time now that I bought off Amazon. People are psyched. And I think for you guys, when you start making movies, you'll start making them for the people that are your fans and going, everyone should like this movie or I failed. When you start making stuff for the people who care about you and your fans, you'll start like disregarding all the other BS of like, is it a good movie? Did it make it to Cannes? Is it not going to be in Sundance? If you make it for your fans and people that care about you, you're like, that is the only people you're looking for. Broad acceptance of is it a good movie or not is a terrible plan. Don't do it. Just make it for the people that are fans of you. I don't care if it's your parents. Just do them. Get your parents psyched, and it'll go out from there. But don't go the other way. Because, dude, I've tried it for years. Like, if this was good enough, everyone would like it. Guess what? You can, like, think about it. Chocolate cake. So delicious. Guess what? There's somebody right now that's like, please, God, don't give me a chocolate cake. Please don't do it, right? If we were all the same, that would be weird. If everyone likes your movie, that's weird. Right? You can have people have a general 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, sure. But the point is still, if you're making movies to make sure everyone likes it, don't bother making a movie. Yeah. That's my final speech. There you go.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you guys.
And before you go, I just want to say, you mentioned see you, man.
Later, dude. It was good to meet you.
It's great to meet you too. Sorry, I have to run.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all.
Before we go, I just want to say you mentioned the scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with the Buster Keaton reference. I just want to say that my phone background is literally
dude, so sick. That lady was hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, 80 Bryant. Yeah,
so
that's
rad.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you so much for doing this, for helping us.
Sure.
I am eternally grateful. We all are, and just we'll send you the final videos and projects when we're done.
Sure.
Until then, take care. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, you guys. Yeah, and I'll send you those couple of links so you can see some newer stuff that I've done. So.
Oh my God! Yes, please.
Yeah, guys. Hey, it was good to talk to you guys.
Thank
you
so
too.
much.
Thank you so much, man.
Later, everybody.
Later,
Bye.
man. Have a good day. All right.
Yeah, later.
See you.
Thank you so much for watching the full interview. To see the final product of all of our hard work, click the link in the description below. And thank you so much for watching. Peace.